this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world.
Absolutely everything about this night has them on tilt. They're aware of one thing for certain: someone will be murdered from their group. What they don't know yet is how many bodies will be laying on the floor by morning. And yet this small band of men have all committed to see this through. Everything they've been trained for and how they've done this before has been completely flipped upside down. The entire script has been changed. And now things are talked about like in code and cloak and dagger. I need two of you to go behind enemy lines and get inside their headquarters. I have a guy on the inside. And the rest are standing there listening, stunned. We go as a group. We walk as a group. And yet their leader picks out the two. I need you and you. Keep your cloaks over your head. Keep your faces down. The crowd is going to be deep inside the city, but you're recognizable now. Don't make eye contact with anyone. Stand just outside the gates. You'll know my guy because he's carrying a jug of water on his head. He's got a place inside. Just follow him. Don't connect. Don't say a word until he opens the door. And then go up and simply say this phrase: the master wants to know if the place is ready. He'll take care of the rest. And with two of them, their eyes are wide. He nods as if that's it. That's all you get. And they leave. The closer they get to this walled city and the city gates, the thicker and thicker the crowd gets. Everyone has tried to get inside this city this week. It is that one time of year, it's that one holiday called Passover that they've been celebrating for over 1,400 years. For 1,400 years, your people make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Everyone tries to celebrate this holy night, this holy dinner inside the city, and yet everyone knows there's no way people can fit. So they make themselves tents, shelters. They cut down palm branches and they bring up with them, because we've all watched Survivor. It's what you make a hut out of if you only need something for a few days. And they bring their own palm trees down from the desert and the wadis. And they stay in shelters around the city. And the two will leave this band of men and they'll make their way inside toward the city and stand out by the city gate, cloaks down just above their brows. They're watching the crowd coming in. There's a water jug woman. Here comes woman. Another water jug woman. Water jug, and it's a guy. And as the guy makes his way through the crowded city gates, without any eye contact, these two just slip in behind him, close enough to always have a distance where they can see where that jug is going, but far enough away not to be seen as the three of them together. The crowd is thick. It's shoulder to shoulder, sandal to sandal. The smell of body odor in this city is just stifling. It's 3 blocks down to the inner court and then a sharp right. It's about another block and a half and then a left. And the deeper you get inside the city, the further off the main street, the narrower and narrow these little roads get, until you're basically in walkways that are sheltered and sunned out by these large brick walls. Air isn't moving. The heat and the smell soaks right through your skin and nostrils, and it's shoulder to shoulder, and they're watching. One small turn to the right and the water jug is set on a stoop. A man goes to open the door, and that's when the first one approaches. The master wants to know, shh, and there's nervous glances up and down the street. The owner of the house realizes this can cost my wife and children. And he understands when he means cost. If the wrong ears have just heard that sentence, he will no longer have wife and children. His family will be massacred. And when it's pretty obvious no one seems to have picked up the first few sentences or words, he nods to the side. He leaves the water jug, and there's a small stairway next to the house. It makes its way up some rickety steps to what's called simply the upper room. He'll open the door and he'll show a table. It's got some of the same fixtures that every table in Jerusalem is going to have. It's going to have the exact same ingredients, the exact same nut mixture, the exact same leaves and lettuce, the bowls of salt water. Everyone is going to celebrate Passover the exact same way. He will say this apologetically. The room is yours. I've tried my best. There's still some stuff that needs to be done, but it's all yours. And I promise no one will know you're here tonight. And the two are left inside to finish the preparations that their own little Jewish eyes have watched since little kids. Every single year, the holiday is done the exact same way until under nightfall. The other 11 join them. One by one, the doors open. One by one, a disciple will walk in, glance to his left, look at the table, and quickly find a seat. The next will do the exact same thing. You'll walk in the door. There'll be a hesitation, a glance to the left, a look at the table, and you quickly realize the most important seats from left to right, from left to right, from left to right are being filled first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and everyone's trying to jockey for position. And it's this table that you will be looking at for the next few weeks. It is what has been simply called over the decades now, centuries, the upper room. It is the famous last words. It is this night their leader has talked about 3 different times. We are going to Jerusalem, and a hush falls over the crowd. You mean where the enemy lives? Where the Pharisees and Sadducees live? Where the religious leaders have put a bounty on your head? You're going to their headquarters? You're going to their city? I'm going to their city. I'm going to hand myself over to them. I'm going to allow them to mock me, beat me, whip me, spit on me. I'm going to allow them to crucify me. And in 3 days, I'm going to pull off Easter. And no matter how many times they've tried to talk him out of that and a better plan, this is the night. And before you get to the teaching over the next few weeks, he wants one object lesson to be burned in their brains for the rest of their lives. One singular object lesson that they will never forget. And it's the only thing they will have to remember if they truly want to become followers. And I get the privilege of kicking off this series in that room at the end of that stairway once they've all sat around the table with the very first words in the upper room. If you got your own flat screen, I want you to watch this with your own eyes. Go ahead and turn it on to John chapter 13. John chapter 13. The tension is thick in the air. All their thoughts, their hearts, their minds are on death. And yet he is desperately trying to show them how to live life. And we have this passage. Are you ready? This is good. Come on. We're going to binge watch the Bible. Are we there? John 13. If you came in dead tired and you're like, man, I hope this is upbeat. I hope this is a lot of funny. I hope this is a lot of energy. I hope this is different than how it started. It's not. It's a solemn mood. What is amazing about this, what is the beauty of stinking Paige Payne and your leadership here, is knowing that this Thursday in all of history is the Thursday we're reading. This is Thursday night of Holy Week, Thursday night of the Passion Week. The Jordan is meeting on this Thursday night before tomorrow night, the cross. We are reading what happened Thursday night before tomorrow night, the cross. It is this night in history where this takes place. See, it was just before the Passover feast. Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave the world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. Look, he knows what is going on. He knows it's time to leave. He knows this is going to be the last night. He knows they're going to be taking him in the garden. He knows after this it's go time. He knows he's going to a trial. He knows tomorrow will be a long day of persecution. He'll get the smack beat out of him. And he knows that tomorrow afternoon he'll be on a cross. He knows it's about time for him to depart and leave the world. And now he wants to show the full extent of his love. Let me show you what this is all about. One object lesson. The evening meal was being served. The evening meal was being The evening meal was already being served. Let's try this over here. Listen to me. The evening meal was already being served. Okay. Let me get this. The evening meal was already being served. Has dinner been served? Is dinner being served? Is dinner on the table? Has the evening meal been served? If we don't get this sentence, we don't get what's about to happen. If we don't get this sentence, we don't understand what's going to go on next. If we don't get this sentence, we don't understand why the disciples are about to be jacked up crazy, chill on the back of their necks, hair sticking out of every arm and pouring frozen solid in their seats. If we don't understand this sentence and what has happened, this is Passover. This is a Passover. This is that time that goes all the way back to 1400. Where a guy Moses led your people out of Egypt. Your people went slaves for 400 years. Your people. Do you got an ethnicity, a heritage about you that is strong? I don't. I'm a mix of so many nationalities. The Browns, like no one's like brown. Oh, what ethnicity is that? And I'm like, it's just trash. It's just mixed. I got, 72 nations mixed up into this thing. It's brown. There ain't no ethnicity. What's your first name? Chris. No one's ever asked me how to spell brown. No one's ever mispronounced it. Chris Brown. And I'm like, no, it's brown. Oh, who's that, French? I'm like, no, you're stupid. It's brown. It's just done. Sometimes I envy those that have this ethnicity and nationality. Go, these are my people. These are my roots. This is where we're from. Oh man, there's beauty in that. I married a Jew. Whoa. She is perpetually tan. Tan. We could move to Alaska, and in February, she can come walking out of the igloo tan. She's dark skin, long dark hair, dark almond eyes. My kids are half Jewish, half mixed up. I love when I was able to take my kids to Israel. They experienced it different than I did because I married into a Jewish family. But for them, dude, my wife's, the maiden name, my dad's name is Goldstein. Come up with a better Jewish name than Goldstein. No one's like, Goldstein, is that Latino? Shut up. We're Goldstein. To see my kids experience Israel, knowing this is part of us. Part of people. Every year for 1,400 years, your people sit at a table that have the exact same plates, the exact same bowls, the exact same cups, the exact same meat, the exact same vegetables, the exact same herbs, the exact same bread. For 1,400 years. When God took your people were slaves. And when he tore the greatest nation, Egypt, apart to bring them out, the very last plague was the plague of death. But he told Moses, you go tell the people you find a spotless lamb, a pure lamb. You kill it. You take its blood and you put it over the frame of the door, the sides of the door, the stoop of the door. Tonight the angel of death will come to Egypt. But if it sees the blood of the lamb on your door, it will pass over you. But if someone thinks this is a joke and doesn't put the blood on their family's doorway, they will taste death. And on that night, the cries of Egypt woke up the Hebrew people. And finally, the great Pharaoh said, get your people and get out. And for 1,400 years, they've been celebrating the passing over with a feast called Passover. For 1,400 years, every family will go and still kill a lamb. It's to be roasted over a fire whole. Don't break it apart in pieces. The entire lamb must be set on the table. If your family's too small for the lamb, you gather with another family. Every night it starts the exact same way. The youngest male in the household will ask the oldest male, Papa, what makes this night different from most? And the little lad will look at his mom and she will nod her approval and he'll smile because he got his line right. And the oldest gray-haired man in the house will tell the story of a lamb that had to be killed. How death passed over your people and how you were set free. They will then break the bread. It's flat. You make bread without yeast in it. It's a reminder your people had to flee that day. You didn't have time to let the bread rise. You eat flat bread. You dip it in a little bowl. It's a mixture of dates and nuts and cinnamon and apple ground together. It looks like mud. It's to remind you that your people made bricks as slaves. And life was hard. You take the lettuce on the table, the bitter herbs that are wrapped in it, and you dip it in the salt water and you eat it. It's to remind you that slavery was bitter. And it's to remind you of the salt, the tears of the Egyptians as you left. And you will eat the lamb that was slain to save you and your family. And you will have cups of promise. And the last cup is that one day God will send a real Savior. The old Hebrew word is Messiah. The Greek word is Christ. They're both this superhero from God that's supposed to save you. And every family will sing the same 4 psalms, the Hallel, with the same prayer at the end. And every disciple will come in, take a look at his right, pause, see where the seating chart is, and realize Jesus will be at the head of the table. The first seat to his right will be number 1. The seat to his left will be number 2. And then it will go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's an order of rank. And every disciple will try their best to sit toward the front. That meal has already been, that evening meal has been, and this happens. Since the evening meal was being served, the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. What a statement. Jesus sat at that table knowing he was the Son of God. He has the power of God. He came from God and he is about to go to God. What do you do if you understand that about yourself? What do you do if you know you're the Son of the Creator? What do you know if you're the Son of God that came from God and now you're about to return to God? This is what you do. You pull off the greatest object lesson of all time. So, because he knew who he was, he knew what he was about, he knew where he was going, and he knew what he was doing. So, he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water into a basin. And I promise you at this moment, that tension in the room that every man was feeling is now at a fever pitch. The evening meal had already been served. The evening meal has already been served. Knowing that and knowing who he was and where he was going, he excuses himself from the table and he got up and he walked back to the door that they all came in. And when he went to the door, he picked up the towel that was by the door and he picked up the water basin and he turned and he faced the table. And every single follower in the room is thinking, oh God, don't give it to me. Oh God, don't make me that guy. You see what has happened in Jewish customs is that for a house of this type of luxury, for a house to have 2 stories, for a second floor to be large enough to have a dinner party of 13, oh, this is a house of great financial luxury. Because of the traffic in the city, because of the amount of sheep and lamb brought in the city, because of the amount of sacrifices coming through that gate and going to the temple, because everyone walks in sandals. Foot washing was such a huge deal. Because you don't bring your crap into somebody's house. You understand that, right? It's kind of disgusting. But you walk with open-toed shoes. The transportation of the day is what? What? Donkey, feet. What else? What's the transportation? Horse, camel, oxen if you're pulling a load. What type of emissions do those things give off? You understand? What type of plumbing happened in first century Judea? They don't know plumbing. They don't understand bacteria. They don't understand germs. You have a pot in the house that you poop in. What do you do when you're done with it? Sorry, didn't see you. It joins the other crap on your road. Your road is pack crap. That's what your road is. Your concrete is just pack crap. And you get enough crap packed down, it gets hardened. So we make most huts with when you're in some South African country, South American, especially if you can find large animals that eat straw, eat vegetation like giraffes or elephants. You get big old balls of crap. You mix it with a little more mud, a little more water, and you pat it down. What happens? That crap becomes hard. It's like concrete. That's what huts are made out of. The smell goes away after a while. That's just new crap smell. You hang a little Christmas tree in there, after a while, you're fine. That's what your roads are made out of. It's why foot washing was so big back then. It wasn't because of some reverence or spiritual thing. We've made it spiritual because of what you're about to read. It was simply because people said, don't bring your crap into my house. This ain't my crap, this is your neighbor's crap. I don't care whose crap it is, wash your feet. Well, now who's going to wash the crap off the feet? Some of you are like, my Lord, this is more crap than I've ever heard in one church in my entire life. This is biblical. Hope you're taking notes. That's right. The lowest of the slaves. Whoever's in the bottom of the barrel, whoever owes the most debt. When company comes, they will sit by the door. They will have a towel and they will have a water basin. In which each guest comes in the door, they will open it and they will look to the left and they will raise their foot. The servant then will grab you just below the back of the calf. He will untie the laces of your shoes, put them to the side, and he will pour water from about the bottom of your calf, top of your ankle down. He will take his hands and wash all the crap that you've collected from that day, and he will take a towel and he will dry that foot. And then he will offer his hand and you will pick up your next foot. And he will do the exact same process. And he's the crap boy. He's got the crap job. When is the time for foot washing? When is the time for foot washing? When you enter. But time has passed. How do we know that? The evening meal has been. Do we know there's a towel and water basin by the door? Jesus just went to pick it up. He's given them enough time. The first drops of Jesus' blood, I don't think come later that night when he's bludgeoned with fist, or when a crown of thorns is yanked down on his skin, so the thorns get in between flesh and bone. But I've always read this story and wondered if the first drops of Jesus' blood were at the table when he bit his lip, watching every one of his students open the door, look to the left, pause, and look at the table and find a seat. And if Jesus isn't biting his lip, hoping, praying, one of them passes the final exam. Please tell me one of you, after 3 years of me pouring out my heart to you guys, after 3 years of demonstrating what this life looks like, after 3 years of begging you to follow me, be like me, please tell me on this final night, one of you gets the object lesson. And he waits, and he waits, and he waits. And now the evening meal is being, and everyone has flunked the exam. So he gets up, and he walks to the door. And he picks up the towel. And he picks up the bowl and he turns. And every guy in the room is thinking the same thing. Don't make me number 13. Oh God, don't make me number 13. Don't make me be the crap boy. And you could hear a pin drop when the knees of the Son of God hit the floor. And when hands that by that next afternoon are about to be pierced with nails start to untie the laces, and Jesus has made himself number 13, knowing who he is, where he's come from, where he's going, and what he's about. This he now shows his full love. And he starts to wash feet. And the disciples are so rocked, not a single one of them can say a word. And as he took off the trouser clothing and wrapped a towel around his waist, and after they poured water in the basin, he began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. And when he finally came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" And Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. It is obvious. You guys have no clue what tonight was about. It is obvious to me. You guys don't have any clue what true discipleship is about. But oh, I pray one day this sinks into your thick head, Peter." And since Peter doesn't get it, his only response, "No," he says, "you will never wash my feet." And Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Well then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." "Well then you can give me a bath." And she's like, "Now you've just gone too far. You've blown the illustration." Jesus answered, "A person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you," because he knew who was going to betray him. That's why he said not every one was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked. And what's their answer? He says, "Look, do you guys understand what I've done?" And their answer is what? No answer. He gets done washing all 12 of their feet. Yes, that means he even washed Judas's feet, knowing that Judas was going to sell him out this night. Then he goes back. He sets the wash basin and the towel by the door. He comes back and he takes his seat. Do you guys have any idea what I've just done? And it is silence. Silence. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, that is who I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now you know these things, you will be blessed if," circle, highlight, underline, "you do them. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed, you do them. Now that you know these things, you will only be blessed, you do them." Not if you know them, not if you can fill in the blank, not if you can memorize this. You will only be blessed, you can do these things. And if you can't serve those around you, you think you're greater than our Lord. And if you can't serve those that are against you, then you think you're better than Jesus. And he goes, "Let me promise, no servant is greater than his master." You see, for the last 4 towns on their way to Jerusalem, this is all that Jesus was trying to get through their head. In Mark chapter 9:33, Jesus stops and says, "Yes, we're going to Jerusalem. Yes, I'm going to hand myself over. Yes, I'm going to allow them to beat me, torture me, crucify me. And after 3 days, I'll rise again." And as they walked on, the disciples started arguing with each other about who was the greatest. And when they came to the next town and were in the house, Jesus asked them, "What were you arguing about on the road?" But none of them answered Jesus because they knew they were arguing about greatness. Are you kidding me? The plan of Jesus for the first time ever has been heard by human ears. That this guy that can walk on water, that this guy that can spit a loogie in the mud and put it on a blind guy's eyes and make him see. This guy that can feed 5,000 people out of one lunchbox. This guy that can speak and wind and waves obey him has just told you he's going to be killed and somehow pull off Easter in 3 days? What do you do with that information? That's right. You argue about who's the greatest. You argue about what does it mean for me? What am I going to get from it? How do I gain from this? Inside the house, he took a little child and said, this is greatness. Anyone that can serve the least of these, serving people that you get nothing from, that's greatness. And they went out to the next town, and after the next town on the road, James and John called Jesus aside and said, Master, promise to do what we ask. This is Mark chapter 10. And Jesus goes, what do you guys have in mind? And James and John said, brothers said, make us number 1 and number 2, or number 1 and number 2. We're good with either. And Jesus says, you have no clue what you're asking. And they said, yeah, we do. We talked to our mom about this. So Jesus called all the disciples together. And the disciples were indignant, angry, because now they're fighting for 3 through 12. And Jesus says, let me tell you about greatness. Let me tell you about greatness. And at the end of this journey in Mark chapter 10, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentile lord it over them. Their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. You know how greatness works. When you have power and position, when you have title or seniority, you get to rule it over people. You get to lord it over people. Not so with you. You know what greatness is like. The higher you get in life, the more you have in life, the more stature or status you have in life, the more you have over people. Not so with you. The moment you became a Christian, one who devoted to live like Christ, not so with you. Your definition of greatness has been changed once and for all when Jesus continued and said, instead, whoever wants to become great among you must become the servant. And whoever wants to be first must become slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. And from there they left and they went to Jericho. What is significant about Jericho? It is 10 miles from Jerusalem. It is the very last city they will walk into and out of together alive. And in Jericho, Jesus stops for a blind man named Bartimaeus, who's at the very bottom of the food chain begging. And Jesus stops for one of the wealthiest men in the city named Zacchaeus. And on the way to his cross, Jesus stops and serves 2 at the top and at the bottom. And he shows them this is greatness. So yes, a week later when he sends 2 inside to prepare the meal, when the rest show up in the darkness, the first thing they do when they get into the upper room is they open the door, they glance. The owner of the house has pulled the crap boy. There is no servant because you have absolutely secrecy about tonight. No one will know what's going on in this room. There's a price on Jesus' head. There's not even a servant at the door. And every disciple would open the door and realize, well, if I wash my feet, some clown is going to come and stick his foot up, and I have to become the foot washer. So instead of washing feet, they track their crap into this room. They sit at the table, and the evening meal has already been served. And Jesus realizes, not a single one of you are going to pass this test. And he gets up and he washes their feet. Do you have any idea what I have done for you? And there's silence. This is Christianity. And you will be blessed if you can do this. Jesus wants you to be great. Jesus wants you to be greatest in every room you walk into. Jesus wants you to be the greatest people in your circle of friends. Jesus wants you to be the greatest person at work. Jesus wants you to be the greatest person in your family. Jesus wants you to be the greatest person in your school. Jesus wants you to be the greatest person in your barracks. Jesus wants you to be the greatest person in your dorm. He wants you to be great. He wants you to be number 1. He wants you to be first. He just redefined those terms. He goes, you understand greatness and first. You understand the world wants title, position, power, and authority so they can be over people. But now that you became a Christian, I'm going to take that definition of greatness, and the Son of God will grab it. There's greatness. Put yourself last. Make yourself a slave. Call yourself the servant. I'm not going to tell you when it's coming, but you're going to have a final exam. I'll give you a hint. I'll give it to you right before I die. It'll sum up everything we've taught, everything we've been through for 3 years. And the moment they all walked through that door and they found their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, instead of serving, they all flunked the exam. And the Son of God is biting his lip, hoping somebody picks up the towel. And when no one does, he will. He has all the title, he has all the power, he has all the authority in that room. And he says, this is what you do when you get title, power, and authority. You pick up a towel. You don't understand it yet. If you did, you would have all fought for that towel. You would have fought for the water basin. But there will be a day you'll start to understand this is the key to the kingdom. And you will be blessed on that day if you can pull this off. What's that look like for a bunch of 20-year-olds? Your game piece is on the very first start square of your adult life. I don't count what you did when you were 16 or 13 or 12. You're on go right now. Your game piece is on square one of the board of life. And you're looking now at what do I do with marriage, with opportunity, with schooling, with education, with job. You've got more energy, more time than ever before. You've got less holding you down than ever before. How the heck do you apply this? I just made a little list. How do you outserve your family, your friends, your coworkers? If there's ever a preference, let someone else choose. If there's a line, you go last. If there's pieces to be taken, you take the smallest. If there's flavors to be chosen, you take the worst. If you need to brag about somebody else. If someone has to give in, you make sure it's you. If sacrifice is involved, you make sure it has your name on it. Let me tell you what's at stake here. We've somehow lost the power of Easter because Christianity has focused primarily on the cross. We believe we're Christians because Jesus came and lived and died on the cross for us. And that's a good start. But we failed to tap into the spirit and the life of the empty tomb. It's what Paul will write in Romans 5. But God demonstrated and showed his love for you that even though you were a sinner, he still sent Christ to die for you. But if you think you've been saved by his death, how much more are you saved by his life? If you were reconciled or brought to God through the death of his son, how much more now being reconciled shall you be saved through his life? Paul says, Christian, if you think you're a Christian because Jesus died on the cross for you, that's a heck of a start. But how much more are you saved? Because he rose for you. Being on high school campuses, college campuses for the first 16, 17 years of ministry, living on a college campus as a campus pastor. The one thing I saw students wrestle with Christians more than anything else is trying to figure out, where's the Spirit in my life? I would ask students all the time, if the Holy Spirit left your life tonight, how long would it take for you to figure it out? You got an answer for me? If the Holy Spirit left you tonight, how long would it take for you to figure it out? If the Holy Spirit left you tonight, how long would it take for you to figure out? I mean, the answer to that question is going to be obvious. Do you know of any proof existence of the Holy Spirit being in your life? Because that's the only way you know it's missing. And for most Christian students, they just stared at me. Well, I don't know. How do you know he's in your life? Because the Bible told me. So God's in your life, and the only way you know is because some verses from 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago? How have we failed to tap into the Spirit? And let me tell you, the key is in the last object lesson. He's going to boil this down over the next few weeks for you. The next few weeks are the most amazing teaching Jesus has. He saves the best for his last, famous last words. Apart from me, you can do nothing. You've got to remain in me. I will be in you, my life in you. It will bear fruit, but apart from me, you can do nothing. And he's setting it all up with this object lesson. So listen to me, Jordan, listen to me. You will never, ever, ever be closer to the Spirit of God than when you are serving. Catch that. You will never, ever be more in tune, in line, in step with the Spirit of God in your life than when you are serving. He's the one with title, position, the authority. You call me master and ruler and Lord, and rightly so, that is who I am. And now that I have washed your feet, you will learn to serve others like this, and you will be blessed if you can pull this off. The key to this whole thing is taking on the Spirit of Christ, to be like Christ. When you call yourself a Christian, what does that mean? I'm going to be the greatest, and I'm going to be number one in the room. And the definition of that is I'm going to be last and slave to everybody. And you will never, ever encounter the Spirit of God more in your life than when you are serving. Now look at the opposite. You will never be further from the Spirit of God than when you are pursuing your greatness. When you are pursuing self, when it's about your reputation, when it's about your fame, when it's about your glory, when it's about your title, when it's about your position, you will never, ever be further from the Spirit of God than when you're pursuing you. And this is why we've quenched the Spirit so much in our life. Because I really think Jesus came and died on the cross to make me great. And by the way, the disciples did. They're arguing about who's the greatest. They're arguing about being number 1 and 2. It's human nature to think that way. Can you serve? Here's the other thing our American church has done you guys a great disservice to. We've called it servant leadership. Guys, we're going to practice servant leadership. We want you to be servant leaders. That is not in the Bible. Jesus was against servant leadership. I fell into this for the first 12 years of ministry. I tried to pride myself. I'm being a good servant leader. I'm going to outserve my team. I'm going to outserve my students. I'm going to outserve my family. I'm a servant leader. Do you see what that is? Servant leader. Servant is an adjective. To what? The noun. What's the noun? Leader. Servant just tells you what type of leader I am. Here's the problem with servant leadership. Every once in a while, someone may confuse you as a servant. And that'll piss you off. Because I'm not really a servant. I'm the leader. Just pretending to be a servant. Get it straight. Don't let that happen again. Jesus didn't call you to be a servant leader. He called you to be slave. That is a noun. Servant isn't a verb. Well, I'm showing up and I'm a servant at the Jordan on Thursday night. Yeah, it's a verb. Servant is something you do. It's a noun. It's who we're supposed to be. Oh, this hit me in one of my greatest moments of absolute humiliation. My wife and I were called to speak at a pastor's conference up in Canada. Up above Vancouver by a few hours at some lake, Kelowna. Anyone know of that resort area? Kelowna? Doesn't matter. They've got a big lake. It was 40 below zero. People are ice skating in the streets. It's ridiculous. I take my little Encinitas Jewish girl and she steps off the plane and she's like, nope, going back home. And I'm like, come on, we're going. Now already, here's what you need to know about your pastor. I got the biggest head in the world. It's one thing being asked to speak at a conference. It's another thing being asked to speak at the pastor's conference. Check frickin' mate. In a room full of peers, I'm the guy speaking for 4 days. So already, They have to open both doors just to get me into the conference center. Now we're sitting there. We've got layers on. We're all bundled up. They got the heater going in this giant conference center at some big hotel up there in Canada. It's minus 40 degrees outside. Chubby guy's got a jacket, got all this stuff. Dude, now I'm sweating. Now here's what I get. I can sweat. I can just like brush my teeth in the middle of winter and I can sweat. So it's a spiritual gift. But I'm just sweating. Like I'm pouring sweat. And I'm sitting there and I'm at the table right down in front of the center of the stage because that's where the keynote speaker is. And I'm feeling pretty cool about that. And I'm looking around going, I got something to drink. There's nothing to drink on the table. Nothing. And finally, on the very side doors open, and they bring out these pitchers of ice water, and they all set them down on these side tables, and then people go back, and they're setting up more tables in the back. They're getting all these people in there, and I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, I'm going to get that water. So I tell my wife, I'm going to go get some of the water, and I'm sweating like crazy. So I get up, and I walk by the tables, and no one knows me yet, because why should they? But they're going to find out I'm the speaker, and I get all the way over there, and I got my black pants and my white shirt, and I took off my jacket, and I took off my tie, because no one else is wearing a tie, and thank God, because I hate nooses. And I get there, and I pick up a thing of water. And as I start walking back with my water, the first table goes, oh, excuse me, sir, can we have some of that water? And I'm like, yeah. And so I pour a couple glasses of water. I go to walk, and the other people at the table, can you get our water too? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, well, that pitcher's gone. The pitcher does about one table. So I go back, and I put the empty pitcher, and I grab it, and I start walking back. And I'm there in my black pants and my white shirt, and I walk it out, and the other table goes, oh, excuse me, waiter, can we get some water? And I'm like, waiter? Yeah. And I'm going to give you water. And I drain that pitcher. So I go back and I put it down empty. Now I'm smart enough to know I'm grabbing two pitchers because one of these is going home with me. But by the time I start walking back, all the tables now on that side of the room has realized, finally, with the heat on and this place filling up, the water boy has come out. And there's hands all over. And I'm doing water. And Amy's wondering where the heck I went. She's around, she's seeing me, and I'm looking down smiling. She's like, well, you're an idiot. I'm like, what? No joke. I empty all 8 pitchers. I see on the other side of the room, they've got another water table. So I tell people, I'll be right back. And I do the chubby guy shuffle, and I start bringing more pitchers. And I become the servant. And I come and I finally sit down with Amy. The very last pitcher, I'm not serving that. I go to the very front of the room, behind the curtain. I come out through the stage and I put it on our table. Because I've burned at least 8 calories right now. And I'm sitting down. Amy's all, what was that about? And I'm like, man, they thought I was a water boy. She's all, what'd you do? And I go, I served everyone I could water. And I sat there so proud of myself because I'm like, just wait until they find out I'm the keynote speaker. And the Spirit of God in that moment just picked me up and ripped me in half. And that's it, isn't it? You're proud when they find out you're not the water boy, but you're the speaker. Oh, but God forbid anyone ever confuses you as just a water boy. And you're going to speak to pastors this week. I had to tell my wife I wasn't feeling good because I knew I was going to start to cry. And I went out through the kitchen door and I pretended like I was sweating when I grabbed a towel from the kitchen and I just put it over my face and I just started to cry, realizing, why am I even called your son? Man, I still got so much pride that can come back into this stupid body. The very last lesson you wanted burned into your followers' brains before you told them about walking in the Spirit and what the Spirit's going to do in their life and how you're going to bear fruit and how you're going to die for them and you're going to show them the full extent of their love. And the very object lesson you have that night is, now be the servant, not a servant leader, be a slave. Be the greatest at your workplace. Be the greatest in your family. Be the greatest amongst your friends. Put yourself first in every single thing. The Son of God just radically changed the definition. By greatest, I mean slave. Not slave leader, slave, serve. By first, I mean last in every choice you can make. And it's there when you take that as a noun, not as an adjective to your leadership, not as an adjective to you being a speaker, but when you can take that as a noun, an identity, you will never, ever be closer to the Spirit of God in your life. And you will start to fall in step for why you were made and who you're made by. but you want to make sure you're a Christian who never experiences the fire of God, make life about you. You will never live more contrary to the Spirit of Jesus than making life about you. Oh, Christian, do you want to know why there's no presence of the Spirit of God in your life? Because we have a tendency to be disciples who argue about who's the greatest and who's 1 through 12, and can I be 1 or 2? And why are they picked to serve? And why are they picked to lead worship? And how come no one's mentioned me yet? And how come no one's noticed me in here? And we will never be further from the Spirit of God. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so. That is who I am. And I have come to serve, not to be served. And if you can't do that, you think you're greater than your master. Now let me tell you, you will find blessings if you can choke on that pride, if you can grasp some humility, and if you can learn to attach servant as a noun, not an adjective, to your gifts. Now wait until people find out who this servant is. But a true servant is okay if someone treats them like the crap boy, because the true servant knows I'm the crap boy. That's my job. I get to be in my master's house, and I get to be the crap boy. And I often wondered, through the trial that will happen this night, through the mocking and the beating, the whipping, I often wondered if the first drops of Jesus' blood weren't spilt at that table when he bit his lip and watched his first graduating class, praying to his Father that one of them picks up the towel. And he waits till all 12 are seated. And he hangs in there, and he hangs in there, and hangs in there. But by this time, the evening meal has been served. Turn your papers over. Put your pencils on your desk. Time's up. You all need to come back next year. No one got this. But there's blessings for those that do. Be careful in life on who you follow as leaders. Insecure leaders will hold on to a title. Secure leaders will pick up a towel and they'll serve. I come to work every morning, pulling into this farthest entrance to take the most drive I can on this property before I go all the way around back to the 2-story building. I park back by the volleyball court. To simply take that drive and constantly have the exact same prayer. God, may I serve the people on this team more than they serve me today. Because I know Chris, my title, my position will get in the way of my calling. It always has. It always will. When Jesus takes the first moment that night and says, this is what you do when in the room you have the title, the power, the position, and the authority, you pick up a towel. You pick up a towel. I'm envious of what will happen in here in the next few Thursday nights. These words written in red, he will start one by one, going through the insecurity of our humanity and drawing out, this is what the Spirit is for. This is what the Spirit does. This is how you bear fruit. This is how you become like your master. Is the goal of your day moving you to walk in the Spirit? Or is everything about who you are and what you're chasing moving you the furthest you could possibly be from the spirit of servanthood that is Christ? What an object lesson. Father, I thank you for this group. God, I thank you that they will never be the church and the leaders of tomorrow. But God, they lead our church today. They are our heart, they are our passion, they are our leadership. God, I thank you for every man and woman in this room that gives of their time to serve our sixth graders, our elementary kids, our junior high, our high school, our worship teams, our life groups, our tech, our graphics. I thank you for every man and woman that gives of a time each week where they host or lead a group, where they've committed to being a vital part of the group. God, I pray that you would stir hearts in these final moments to accept a calling to be like you. This Maundy, Thursday, that Holy Week word Maundy, simply that we have a new commandment. This is what we're supposed to do for each other. We outserve, we outlove, we outslave. Thank you for showing us what real title, position, and authority looks like. Now take our hearts, take our minds, make it more like you. Take our pride, take our ego, smash it to bits. Take our esteem for self, our desire for greatness about being first and having the most, and make it least. God, take your spirit and wreck us so we can come out looking, talking, feeling more like you. God, may we step in line with your spirit to unlock the giftedness you've given us so the giver now can have his way. May we find out the true blessing in life is knowing just not what we are created to do, but allowing the Creator to do it through us. And God, may we realize that servanthood, being last, is the key to that blessing and the key to finding our usefulness. God, use us. Father, find us faithful and use us.